1935, Senator Robert Wagner of New York introduced the National Labor Relations Act. Also known as the Wagner Act, this bill would prove to be one of the most important pieces of legislation in our nation's history. This desk at which I sit was used by Senator Hugo Black of Alabama, who was Franklin Roosevelt's favorite Southern senator, they said, later to be a member of the Supreme Court. Senator Black sat at this desk and helped draft that legislation with the National Labor Relations Act. In fact, did some of the early work on the Social Security Act, what he proposes a 30-hour work week that later helped Senator Wagner pave the way for the National Labor Relations Act. Before President Roosevelt signed the bill, American workers were routinely harassed and fired for organizing unions. American workers were often intimidated. They were prevented from bargaining collectively. The Wagner Act changed that. 1 year after its passage in 1936, this law gave rubber workers in Akron, Ohio, the legal tools needed to protect against poor working conditions and to protest the conditions they were working under. The bill authorized an independent federal agency consisting of presidential appointees confirmed by the Senate. The National Labor Relations Board protects American workers, protects union members, private sector employees without a union card, both, to work together to improve their wages or working conditions. Today, the NLRB is needed perhaps more than ever. Let me tell you a story real quick, Madam President. A few years ago, I was in Cincinnati at a dinner, and sitting at the table in front of me were 6 or 7 middle-aged women, half white, half minority, perhaps. They had just signed their first union contract with the Service Employees International Union. These 5 or 6 women were the negotiators with on behalf of 1,200 janitors negotiating with the downtown Cincinnati business owners. There was an empty seat at the table, so I went and sat down. I said, "What does having this union mean to you?" And they had just signed the contract that day. One woman said, "I'm 51 years old. This is the first time in my life I've ever had a paid 1-week vacation." And think about the number of Americans that don't have a paid 1-week vacation. I mean, for people in these jobs that dress like this, for the Pages sitting here, most of their parents, I imagine, are used to working a place where they get a week or a 2 or 3 week paid vacation. Much of America doesn't. That's just one of the things a union has brought to this country in giving people those opportunities. 2013, the reason I say the NLRB is needed perhaps now more than ever, 2013, state legislatures are curbing collective bargaining rights. 2 years ago in Ohio, the state legislature and Governor Kasich took away collective bargaining rights for all intents and purposes for public employee workers. The voters of Ohio said no to that. 61% of them struck that law down in a referendum. But nonetheless, the anti-union efforts from the most pro-corporate, conservative, far-right state legislators and state legislatures across the country continue unabated. Workers are still being punished for discussing pay and bonuses with one another. For 78 years, the NLRB has been instrumental in addressing the challenges American workers face. Senator Wagner explained on the floor, it's necessary to ensure a wide distribution of wealth between management and labor to maintain a full flow of purchasing power and to prevent recurrent depressions. We know when workers make decent wages, workers buy the cars made in this country. They buy the appliances. They go to the hardware store. They pay their property tax. They buy homes. They renovate their homes. They do things that put money into the economy. If you only have a sliver of people that are very wealthy in a declining middle class, the purchasing power and the growth in the economy tends to diminish. And that's not what kind of country we want, or it's not what kind of country we've had since World War II. But just a few years after the Great Recession, there's a widening gap between the average wage of workers and heads of corporations. For families struggling to make ends meet after a breadwinner was unfairly forced off the assembly line, the Nlrb matters. If we do not confirm the president's nominees, then workers like Kevin from Akron will have no recourse from against retaliation for his union activity. Kevin and his co-workers wanted to form a union to stop a 12-hour shift policy from being put in place at their place of employment. The company fired 6 workers, including Kevin, for this union activity. While the NLRB ordered the company to reinstate the workers, the NLRB said the company was wrong under federal law. The workers should be reinstated. The D.C. Circuit Court, peopled in large part by by judges that almost always do the bidding of the wealthiest corporations in this country. The D.C. Circuit Court delayed enforcement of the case until the pending challenge to the president's 2012 nominees is resolved in court, or the board has a Senate-confirmed quorum. That's why Kevin is a human face of why America needs a fully staffed National Labor Relations Board with the legal quorum needed to do its job. We should confirm these board members. We should make sure that workers like Kevin receive the workplace protections, whether they're union members, whether they're not union members, the workplace protections they deserve. Thank you, Presiding Officer.